life is going to beat you down. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when. Every setback, every failure, every insult, every moment of doubt, that's life throwing sandpaper at your soul. Most people run from it. They want comfort. They want safety. They want easy. But you don't grow in easy. Easy keeps you weak. When you step into the fire, when you deliberately put yourself through struggle, through pain, through discipline, you start to build something more than muscle. You build armor. You build calluses. Not just on your hands, but on your mind. And here's the truth. A callous mind doesn't break when life gets heavy. It doesn't fold when it gets tired. It doesn't look for the exit when things get hard. A callous mind leans into the storm. It embraces the suffering. And every time you endure, every time you push one step further, when you're screaming to quit, you harden your mind another layer. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Life is never going to hand you that. You've got to be willing to grind when it's dark, to fight when it hurts, to stand tall when everyone else bows down. Callous your mind and you'll become unstoppable. Not because life got easier, but because you got harder. Most people spend their lives running from struggle. They treat discomfort like it's poison, like it's something to avoid at all costs. But the truth is, the struggle is where all the growth hides. You don't build strength by living soft. You don't sharpen steel without fire. Every challenge you face, every obstacle you fight through, that's the forge where you're either broken or built. Discomfort isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. When you hit that point where your body screams to stop, your lungs burn, and your mind says, enough. That's the exact place you need to stay. That's the line that separates the average from the relentless. If you step back every time it gets hard, you rob yourself of the very experience that would toughen you into someone unstoppable. The problem is, comfort feels good. Comfort is seductive. It tells you that you deserve rest, that you've done enough, that someone else can carry the weight. And every time you listen, you weaken your edge. You give away your resilience piece by piece until you've got nothing left when life really tests you. Embracing the struggle means rejecting that lie, even when it's screaming at you. When you deliberately put yourself in situations that push you to your limits, you gain control. You're not waiting for life to break you. You're training yourself to handle the break before it comes. The weight room, the long run, the cold shower, the tough conversation, all of these are opportunities to prove to yourself that you can stand inside discomfort and not fold. It's not about enjoying the pain. It's about respecting what the pain gives you. Pain strips away ego. It exposes weakness. It shows you exactly where you're fragile. And instead of hiding from that, embracing the struggle means facing it directly, acknowledging it, and using it as fuel to grow stronger. When you lean into hard situations, something powerful happens. You stop fearing them. You realize the monsters in your head were never as big as you imagined. Struggle loses its power to intimidate you because you've trained yourself to walk straight into it without hesitation. That's when confidence is born, not fake confidence, but the kind that comes from knowing you've been tested and survived. Most people wait for perfect timing, for inspiration, for the stars to align. But embracing the struggle means you move regardless. You get up when it's dark. You work when it's cold. You push when you're tired. And you keep going when everyone else taps out. Struggle doesn't wait for convenience, so neither can you. The more you embrace it, the more you rewire your brain to see struggle as opportunity instead of punishment. Every setback becomes training. Every hardship becomes another rep. Every failure becomes a stepping stone toward a stronger version of yourself. That shift, seeing the struggle instead of a burden, is the key to building a mind that can't be broken. Life doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your plans, your excuses, or your comfort. It's going to test you with setbacks, rejection, failure, and pain. Most people get crushed under weight because they never train their minds to take the hit. They're like bare skin against sandpaper. Every scrape tears them apart. Building mental armor means you don't just survive those hits, you learn to wear them. You make your mind tough enough to withstand anything. Think about calluses on your hands. They don't form from one workout or one day of work. They form from repeated friction, from stress, from pressure. Your mind works the same way. Every time you face adversity, every time you push yourself when you want to quit, every time you fail and keep moving, you're adding another layer of armor. You're protecting yourself against the next storm. Mental armor doesn't come from reading a book or repeating affirmations. It comes from exposure. It comes from putting yourself into situations that are brutally uncomfortable and refusing to back down. That's how you condition your mind to handle chaos. When you repeatedly face discomfort, what once felt unbearable becomes manageable, and what once broke you becomes fuel. Pain and failure are not signs you're weak. They're proof you're in the arena. Every time you get knocked down, every time you stumble, that's an opportunity to reinforce the armor. But only if you stand back up. If you stay down, if you retreat into comfort, the armor never forms. You stay fragile, exposed, and breakable. Mental armor is not about being emotionless. It's about refusing to let emotions control your actions. Fear shows up. Doubt shows up. Insecurity shows up. But with armor, you don't let them dictate your next move. You acknowledge them, and then you push forward anyway. The armor doesn't block out the pain. It allows you to function through it. Every challenge you face becomes a training ground. The hard conversation you don't want to have, the early alarm you don't want to answer, the workout when you're exhausted. Each time you go through it, you're telling your brain, we don't quit, we don't bow down, we endure. Over time, that message becomes ingrained. That's the layering process. That's the armor building itself one rep at a time. Without mental armor, life dictates who you are. With it, you dictate how you respond. And when you know you can endure suffering without breaking, fear loses its grip. That's when you become dangerous. Not to others, but to every obstacle that tries to stand in your way. You stop negotiating with struggle because you know you can outlast it. The world is not going to stop testing you. Hard times are guaranteed. Pain is guaranteed. But the more you expose yourself, the more layers you build. The less those things can shake you. Mental armor doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. And strength of mind is the one weapon no one can take away from you. Excuses are the most dangerous lies you'll ever tell yourself. They sound reasonable. They sound logical. They whisper in your head that you've done enough, that you deserve a break, that tomorrow is a better day to start. And every time you listen, you train your brain to quit. The more you feed excuses, the weaker your will becomes until quitting becomes your default. Outlasting your excuses means recognizing that voice for what it is. Weakness dressed up in justification. The mind quits long before the body does. You can run farther, lift heavier, endure more pain than you believe. But your brain will scream at you to stop long before your limit is truly reached. That's why so many people fail. They obey the first signal of discomfort. They mistake temporary pain for a permanent wall. But if you learn to silence that voice and keep moving, you discover that wall is an illusion. Excuses will always sound convincing because they come from inside your own head. You can rationalize anything, the weather, your schedule, your mood, your exhaustion. But here's the truth. Your goals don't care about your mood. The mission doesn't care about the rain, or the cold, or how little sleep you got. If you want to outlast your excuses, you've got to act regardless of conditions. Discipline is what carries you when motivation dies. Think about how many times you've said, "I'll start tomorrow." That's the trap. Excuses push everything into the future, where it feels safer. But tomorrow is a graveyard for dreams. Tomorrow never shows up unless you force yourself to take action today. Outlasting excuses, refusing to delay. You move now, not later. You take the step today, even if it's small, even if you don't feel ready. Excuses thrive in comfort. They feed on easy options. When you strip comfort away and expose yourself to challenge, the excuses start losing their power. You train your mind to push through resistance, and with every rep, every run, every hour of discipline, you weaken the hold those excuses have on you. You replace weakness with proof. Proof that you can endure. Proof that you can keep going. There will never be a day when excuses disappear. That voice will always be there. But the difference between the weak and the strong is that the strong don't negotiate with it. They hear it, they recognize it, and then they move anyway. That's what it means to outlast your excuses. You keep walking while your brain is begging you to sit down. When you train yourself to outlast excuses, you gain something most people will never touch: freedom. Freedom from the limitations of your own mind. Freedom from the lies you tell yourself. Freedom to reach levels that only exist on the other side of resistance. Every time you ignore the excuse and push forward, you carve a new path in your brain, one that leads to resilience instead of regret. Excuses are endless. They will always find new disguises. But so is your capacity to endure, if you're willing to outlast them. If you're willing to keep moving one step further, every single time, they lose their grip. And once they lose their grip, there is nothing left to stop you but yourself. Most people treat suffering like a disease. They run from it, hide from it, numb themselves to it with distractions, food, comfort, or excuses. But suffering is not your enemy. It's your forge. It's the fire that strips away weakness and forces you to reveal what you're really made of. Leaning into suffering means no longer seeing it as punishment, as preparation. When pain shows up, the average person immediately looks for the exit. They'll quit, cut corners, or avoid the challenge altogether. But the ones who grow, the ones who evolve into something unshakable, are the ones who plant their feet and say, "Bring it on." They lean forward into the storm because they know every second inside that pain is shaping them into someone tougher than before. Suffering teaches you lessons comfort never will. Comfort hides your weaknesses. Comfort whispers that you're strong enough, good already enough. But suffering exposes the cracks. It shows you where you're fragile, where you break, where you still need work. And instead of hiding from that truth, you use it. You let suffering shine a light on what must be rebuilt. Every breakthrough you've ever admired was born through suffering. Champions aren't made in easy times. They're molded in hardship, in repetition, in sacrifice, in long nights and early mornings when nobody's watching. That's the reality. Suffering is the price you pay for greatness. And if you're unwilling to pay that price, you'll forever be stuck wondering what you could have been. Leaning into suffering doesn't mean you love pain. It means you respect what it gives you. You learn to use it as fuel when your legs are burning, when your lungs are screaming, when your mind is begging for relief. That's the exact moment you grow. That's the rep that counts. That's the mile that matters. That's the battle that forges the callous you'll carry for life. When you lean into suffering, you strip away excuses. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, that mindset shift changes everything. Suddenly, adversity becomes an opportunity, not a curse. You begin to seek out challenges because you know each one makes you sharper, harder, more resilient. The things that used to intimidate you lose their grip because it's yourself to survive worse. The world won't stop throwing pain your way. Life doesn't give you the option to avoid suffering forever. But if you've leaned into it, if you've made peace with it, then nothing life throws at you can break you. You've already suffered by choice. You've already walked through the fire. And once you've endured on your own terms, the unexpected hits don't scare you anymore. Leaning into suffering is about ownership. It's about deciding you'd rather step in the storm on your feet than live your life hiding in the shadows. The more you face it, the more you realize pain is temporary. But the strength you gain from it lasts forever. And that strength, that armor forged in suffering, is the one thing nobody can ever take from you. Becoming unstoppable doesn't mean you never feel fear, doubt, or exhaustion. It means you don't let those things dictate your actions. Everyone feels them. Everyone hears that voice in their head telling them to quit. But the unstoppable ones move anyway. They don't wait for the perfect conditions. They don't wait for confidence. They act in the face of fear. In the presence of doubt and through exhaustion. That's what makes them different. When you build resilience through struggle, when you stack layers of mental armor, when you outlast every excuse, you start to cross a line that most people never reach. That line is where comfort ends and dominance begins. Most people live their entire lives on the wrong side of that line, safe, soft, predictable. But if you've put in the work, if you face the suffering head, you step across, you enter a place where limits don't control you anymore. Unstoppable doesn't mean you never fall. You will. You'll fail, stumble, hit walls, and face setbacks. But unstoppable means those things don't define you. You don't stay down. You don't let failure be the final word. Instead, you use it as momentum, as data, as fuel. Every setback becomes another reason to push harder, not a reason to quit. The unstoppable mindset is built on discipline. Motivation comes and goes like the wind, but discipline is steady. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel. I don't care if it's raining, if I'm tired, if I'm sore. The mission comes first. And when you live like that, your consistency compounds. One disciplined action stacks on another till suddenly you've built something no excuse, no weakness, no failure can knock down. When people see someone unstoppable, they often think that person is special, gifted, chosen. But the truth is, they're just someone who refused to give up when it hurt. They leaned into the grind when others tapped out. They silenced excuses when others surrendered. They didn't have more talent, they had more grit. And grit will always beat talent when talent refuses to suffer. Being unstoppable doesn't mean life gets easier. In fact, life will throw even more at you once you start to rise. The weight will get heavier, the resistance stronger. But by then, it won't matter, because you've already built the capacity to endure. You've already trained yourself to see resistance as proof that you're on the right path. That's why the unstoppable don't fear pressure. They crave it. At some point, people will doubt you, criticize you, maybe even try to break you. But if you've forged the Callous mind, if you've armored yourself through suffering, if you've built discipline brick by brick, there's nothing they can do. You've become a force that doesn't fold under pressure. You've become someone who moves forward regardless. That's what unstoppable looks like. It's not speed, it's not talent. It's persistence that refuses to die. Becoming unstoppable is not about outrunning everyone else. It's about outlasting the old version of yourself. The weak, excuse-filled, comfort-chasing version that used to hold you back. When you finally bury that person and rise into who you were meant to be, there's no going back. You've earned freedom. You've earned strength. You've earned the right to look at life and say, no matter what comes, I cannot be broken. That's the true definition of unstoppable.